right, I think we are good to go. It's the morning. We always know that I have trouble getting these things running first thing in the morning. But it appears we have done it. Excellent. Guys, what if it happened right the first time for the second week in a row? This could be entirely too exciting. Yes, excellent. All right, so I am here. There is coffee. That is probably the best state of events there could possibly be because Saxon was a bit of a jerk last night and was up probably 6 or 7 times as the night went on, which was tiresome for me. I am tired. But I'm here. People will be here to hang out, and I'm excited about that. So, working on a continuation of the August Patreon map today. I'm going to be continuing with the inking, and my goal is to get as much of the inking as I can get done today finished. We're going to probably move into the mountains, which are over here, which is always my favorite part of inking any map. And then ideally, I would like to get this painted over the next few days so it can be uploaded on time for my patrons for this month. I'm currently working on map elements for Lauren Wyman for her new novel that's coming out. So can't really show that off just yet. I don't have it quite at the spot where I'm ready to broadcast it beyond my Instagram. But yeah, so got that to work on and it'll be good. So for today, just going to continue inking with this, and from there we'll move on to the color eventually. Probably not this week, probably next week, if it all goes well. So I put up a couple of different places for notes that I would be doing the live stream today. I posted on Instagram, which I don't usually do, and I also posted it to one of my map making groups on Facebook that I'm an admin for. So I hope that a couple new people maybe find their way to us. That would be fun. If you are hanging out, feel free to jump into the chat and say hi. Tell me who you are, where you're from, and what brought you to me, because I'm always curious to know. For those of you who are my regulars, Myrna will not be joining us this week because she's in Iceland, lucky girl. So we will miss her, but we are looking forward to all of her photos when she gets back. So much. And yeah, it's pretty good over here. Saxon is asleep on the floor beside me. Hopefully he is not restless while we stream today. That would be good. It would be an appropriate apology for keeping me up all night last night. So I'm just working with the Pigma brush pen right now. I'm finding that I'm really enjoying the mark making that it makes on the page for when I'm doing trees. I like that the tips start out very fine and then the bases get a little bit thicker. I find that it mimics the texture of particularly something like a lodgepole pine quite well. And I love that, how that works to kind of create the illusions of depth and valleys and shadows and stuff like that. It does take a lot of patience. Josh and I were joking about tiny tree solidarity the other day because it's a time-consuming process, but I love the way it looks. It's absolutely worth it. I was doing this with a non-brush pen for a little while and then realized that the brush pen might give me a more dynamic line, and that was really exciting for me to kind of figure out. I don't have a lot of... Hey Patrick, how are you? I recognized your photo, so I knew exactly who it was instantly. I don't normally post in the mapping group. Maybe I should. I kind of thought maybe I'd take a chance on it today. How's it going? And what are you working on lately? Awesome. I'm glad it's not bad. Did you see the posts in the group about doing the map with the randomized dice? Kind of determining what goes where and like what shapes you're dealing with for landforms and stuff? We're thinking about rolling a set for the page, and then people who want to participate can kind of jump in there and do that if they want to, which I think might be fun. Awesome. What system are you running? I'm playing tonight in Dave's game, and then I'm running a one-shot for friends of mine tomorrow, for some friends that have never played before, so that'll be fun. And then I was supposed to be running my regular game on Sunday, but we've pushed it off for a week. People are just busy and need some downtime, so that'll be good. I think it will be good. Cyberpunk 2020, hey? I've never played any Cyberpunk systems that weren't Shadowrun. So that would be very interesting. Also, how do we feel about cyberpunk things that are set in the year that's next year? I've always felt a little bit of a dilemma about that. I'm like, the world is not nearly as cool as all of these gaming systems would have me believe we'd be by this time. I do a lot of my world building in 5e. That's where the campaign that I'm running is set into, so it's been a lot of fun to kind of mess with that. The world that I'm using is the world that I've been building for my book, though, so it's definitely like 5e mechanics overlaid with the world building that isn't necessarily standard like Forgotten Realms or WotC. How many players in your group, Patrick? It's kind of cool how that's different, hey? That you find that you like playing the one more but world building in the other better. I want to learn how to play more systems for that, I think. I don't have a lot of experience with different systems. I've played a lot of the versions of D&D, but I haven't played like a lot of Shadowrun or Vampire or anything like that, to kind of know different mechanical setups. I think it would be just useful to kind of have a higher literacy with that. If you crack the whip, hey? It can be tough to get everyone together around a table. We're always so busy as adults. I get that. You're not old. You're not old. That means you're like my generation. Dave, my partner, started DMing when he was 8. So he's been DMing for 30 years too. I don't think that makes you old. I think that makes you experienced. Certainly how I choose to view it. I think it also gives us a really different perspective on like the evolution of role-playing games as a genre. Because when we started playing, it was not cool. There was no Critical Role. There was no, a general acceptance of it. And it definitely had a different impact on those of us who really loved the games. I'm not saying that people like are scot-free in their appreciations now. I just think that the overall temperature of the world has changed in terms of role-playing games, particularly in North America and Europe. So it's kind of neat to see the evolution. I'm definitely not complaining about it. I think the more people who want to play and have access to games, the better off we all are. It teaches such amazing skills. Is the wow because Dave started DMing so young? Because if you'd ever met him, you would realize he is that kind of stubborn. I think it is dead on. Like, a friend of mine is an educator in elementary school, and they're starting up a bunch of D&D groups, actually as extracurricular activities for the kids, because the resurgence has been just so incredibly popular that they have elementary school students who come in whose parents play, or they've seen it on TV or Critical Role or what have you, and they're like, we want to try this, let's do this. And Dale, my friend, is finding that it's really great for like numbers literacy because you're teaching like basic algebra as you go along, but also like basic reading and writing and interpersonal skills. And I mean, who doesn't want to teach that to kids in a way that is fun and practice? And I think like I know adults that could benefit for some more practice in that regard, bring it on. So, I think that's just really cool. My gaming group is, I was going to say 100% military, but it's not. There's two of us that are civilians now. Um, and I tell you, it's a different gaming experience than I've ever had before. Playing a social and tactical game with people who do tactical for a living, but aren't maybe necessarily the most socially adept. Um, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, Stranger Things. That was something that I hadn't really expected to kind of be a gateway for people. But especially because you see the kids so young playing and like this is their normal. And I mean, that's Dave's generation down to a T, right? Like, what is Stranger Things set in the first season is what, 85? I want to say. So like Dave would have been 5 in 85. So a little bit younger than those kids, but like they were what, 12? So totally, that's a thing. We have like pretty much all of the D&D stuff. Well, I wouldn't say all of it, but Dave is a really avid collector of Dungeons and Dragons like source books and stuff. And he wants the Stranger Things one just because it's another boxed set. He's like, this is really important to me just for the nostalgia factor and completionist stuff. And I was like, yeah, I mean, whatever you want, man. If it makes you happy, that is a big deal. But it made me happy to just kind of see that they were like honoring the history of the game by releasing it as a red box set, and so cool. Did you really? That's really cool. I didn't realize that you were Army. Thank you for your service. Also, tell me about how you feel about the phrase thank you for your service, because apparently it's contentious up here and I didn't know that. I am curious. I've been asking everyone that I know has a service history because I want more opinions on the matter. I was really surprised to discover how many D&D players there are in the forces here. Like, we live on a really small base. I'm in Alberta, Canada, and there was honest to God like a wait list to get into Dave's game when people started to find out that he was running one. It really surprised me. People just are genuinely really into it. I've got friends that are in Iraq right now that's like their social thing. They do that on their nights off and stuff. I'm sorry, I did not mean to make you feel awkward. And I think medically retired is the appropriate phrase. So, now I feel awkward. I didn't mean to make you feel bad, Patrick. I'm sorry. There was someone that I was speaking to up here who was like, I kind of feel like as a civilian, you have no idea what we go through. So for you to say those words, it's kind of cheap and kind of hollow. And I understood where he was coming from because as a civilian, I don't know to nearly the same degree. Definitely that is true. But as an Army spouse, I have a better idea than most, I would say. Um, and so I think it's important for me to say thank you because I do understand more about it than, other people. And so I feel like my words maybe carry a little more weight in that context, but he was quite adamant that I should never have said anything. I was like, oh, all right, well, I will be more careful then. So, okay, I think I follow. Well, thank you for explaining for me. I have um I have my own disability stuff. It's all mental, so I do understand the having to deal with people when they don't quite understand what's going on with me and that constant kind of navigation of like myself as someone who's a person, not just someone who's a person with an illness. And I feel like there are times when all people see is the disability, and I find that very frustrating because there's definitely more to me than just that. Um, so it is kind of one of those things that really sits with me. Do you find that it feels less hollow coming from a service spouse? Or is it kind of like if you're a civilian, you're a civilian? Because when I was talking to this gentleman, we were talking a little bit about like the ability of civilians to relate in relation to the fact that a lot of service people and veterans don't really want to talk about their experiences. And I think on that level, like I know a lot of people who don't want to talk about their experiences. And I think it's kind of evenly split among people who um, don't want to talk about it because they're afraid of making like civilians uncomfortable and don't want to talk about it because they're uncomfortable and they don't really want to be the person to broker that conversation because they don't have the skills or the spoons or whatever. And I think that's legit. You should totally be in control of the things that you're talking about and you have to be comfortable with that. But I think as a result, a lot of civilians don't know how to talk about it in a way that's appropriate. Um, and I think that's kind of a style of conversation that we still need to have. I know in Canada, our military, not prevalence, presence, that's the word I want, it's not very high. A lot of people, there was just an article a couple of months ago in one of our national newspapers, don't really think about us even having an army. Enrollment is low. There's all kinds of things with that. And I think we go out of our way to kind of not broadcast that we do. I think because Canada wants to maintain this reputation as like a very peaceable, non fighty kind of nation. But I think that also means that civilians don't know how to have those conversations because it's not necessarily a real thing for them. And I find that challenging to navigate, just for myself, even as a spouse. So, the call for, okay, that makes sense. I'm glad that it was positive for you. I'm assuming that was nothing but good experiences, not by good experiences. Although by would make sense linguistically too. Yeah, Dave was in Bosnia in the 90s, I think, and he's currently in Latvia. But he's largely been someone who's been training other troops. So he was responsible for doing a lot of the training when the guys were going from here to Afghanistan and Iraq. He's a very good teacher, which was something that we bonded over when we met. Um, I met him in my university classroom. He showed up. I was TAing for that class, and he was actually working full time, managing a reserve detachment in Regina. And he was basically leaving the office, coming to school, attending his class, going back to the office, and he was doing that like 3 or 4 times a day because he needed to work full time and also go to school full time. And so he shows up in this classroom, he's wearing his uniform, beret, front and center. He's in his 30s in a room full of 19-year-olds. And I was like, who are you and what are you doing here? And I was very confused. And I have to admit, I had some terrible assumptions about the military at that point. If you had asked me then if I ever thought I would date, never mind marry someone from the military, I would have been like, hell no. I was under some very horrifying stereotypes. Again, because like civilians don't understand what's going on really, or how to have those conversations. I was definitely guilty of that. But Dave won me over. He just proved that he was a really competent person and a good teacher and had a hell of a sense of humor. And he asked me out eventually, and I was like, yeah, I'll go for coffee with you. And eventually he somehow convinced me to propose to him, and we got married. So now I'm here, making maps in the middle of nowhere, Alberta, doing the art thing. Which is alright. The military can be really rough on marriages. I agree with that. I think we're lucky because for both of us, this is a second marriage. And so we had experiences in the past that have really given us perspective on realistic expectations of spouses, and a lot of independence. Like, we are both very, very independent people. So that helps with like him being gone for a year. I know I can handle that. I'm perfectly capable of holding down the fort and doing everything that needs to be done here. And like, I miss him, don't get me wrong. He's my home, he's my person. But it's not the end of the world. Um, and the way that we communicate is really effective. So I don't think that we struggle with certain things the way I've seen other deployed couples definitely struggle. I think it also helps that we don't have kids, though. And that's a decision that we made pretty early on, just because we're both older. Um, I don't think I'd be able to be one of the rock stars who handles single parenting with a deployment. I think that that would be way more than I'm capable of taking on. Yeah, the messes here don't have any slots. I don't know if that's true of all Canadian bases, or just the one that I'm in, but if you want to go do anything at the mess, you go play pool. Or I guess they have like video game consoles now, so you could go like play Mario Kart or Call of Duty or something. But most people just go to the mess to have a couple of drinks and hang out. They do like dinners for us on Thursdays that they bring in food, and it's like a happy hour. You can go in and have dinner, have a couple drinks, and just hang out with people. I haven't gone since Dave's been deployed just because I feel a little bit more awkward of showing up as the spouse without my member present. Um, but it's kind of nice that they are trying to keep that sense of community together. I understand that the mess culture has really decreased in recent years because the Army is doing a lot to try and curb a lot of drinking because there are quite a few service members that do have alcohol issues. So that's been a thing. It's also been interesting because marijuana was just legalized here a little while ago. So the Army is definitely having to kind of navigate that becoming a legal substance on their bases and stuff like that. So that's been interesting. Hello, my Gary. How are you, darling? Sorry, we're talking about Dave's work stuff because Patrick was Army too, so it's nice to have someone else I can kind of talk about this with. Your stuff? Well, I like that your stuff. That's better than non-stuff. I will completely accept stuff over non-stuff. How are the kittens? You know me, I apologize for everything. I double down on that Canadian stereotype like nobody's business. Although it served me good purpose the last time I was in France, because I was out with a couple who were American, and unfortunately, I know this isn't true of all Americans, but the French and the Americans have a thing about cultural differences in terms of some stuff, and unfortunately, Jeff and Kat were kind of feeding into that. And apparently, I apologized so much for their behavior that the waitress was like, "You must be Canadian." I was like, "Ah, yes, yes, I am." She was like, "Yeah, it's okay, relax." I was like, "All right, this is me attempting to relax." So I just wish people were, more patient, especially with wait staff. If you've never been a server, you don't know how stressful that is. It is its own thing. I like walks. Walks are good. But of course, in Molly's case, that means just going outside and flopping somewhere, right? Or is she actually getting braver about leaving the house, going somewhere? Guys, how did I not work in brush pen for forever? I need to know. This is something that I enjoy so much now that I'm doing it. I don't know if you can hear Saxon sighing in the background. He was such a jerk last night. He had me up like 6 times, and I was like, Shepherd, go to bed. He was not my favorite person. She got out of the harness. How did she manage that? It's a very Houdini-like thing to do. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. He sounds like a very grumpy old man this morning. Yeah, I think brush pens are going to be like the most valuable tool into 2019. I am just so in love with these things now. I got one, actually I didn't get it, Myrna got it for me. This one is a Pentel pocket brush pen. Come on, open up. And what I love about it is it's actually refillable. There's a cartridge in here. I'm still testing it out to see how durable it is in terms of like, can I layer watercolor over it without it blurring, because that's the most critical thing. And like these Pigmas are flawless, which is why I'm still using them. But But yeah, I want that Pentel one to work out because the idea of not having to throw away a pen body every time I finish a pen, just for the environmental repercussions of that, is super appealing. Well, at least she came out. That's positive. I can't imagine she would ever want to be parted from you for terribly long. Did you guys have the wind there last night? It really picked up here for a while. Rain last night. Sorry, Patrick. I know that this is not going to leak, or at least if it does, I completely own that I screwed that one up. But yeah, I hear you. There are other things that I definitely do not open over my thing. I have had more trouble though, not with like my own error, but Saxon, I had to break him of the habit of putting his toys up on my desk. Because he'll try to get my attention sometimes by like putting his bowling pin or his ball or something up here so that I can't ignore it. And I have had paintings get ruined by like dog slobber, and it's like, oh boy, you need to leave the room or I am going to be very angry with you. But he hasn't done that in a couple of months now, so that is a huge relief. I was beside myself the first time he did it. It's like, oh boy, silly puppy. Hey, Laura. This? The lighter blue? Is this what you mean, babe? Or do you mean these? Or yeah, like these little ones. Straight up, they were errors in the masking fluid. I'm just incorporating them into, oh, to the right. So these ones. They were errors in the masking fluid, so I'm just turning them into coastal lakes. Geographically, that makes 0 sense, I'm pretty sure. But it's going to look pretty. So we're going to go with that. Laura, your coworker's name starts with a J. I want to say Justina. I didn't write it down from last session. I'm sorry. I intended to and then completely forgot. But hi. Justina, hey, I remembered. Score. Let's celebrate that because we all know how terrible my memory is. Happy Friday, friends. Yeah, right. Make them a feature for sure. It's kind of my whole policy on map making. Turn a flaw into an asset somehow. Figure out a way. Which Harry Potter podcast, Laura? Swish and Flick. I don't know that one. What's the premise? 2 years ago. Oh my goodness. It's quite a bit of a haul. 4 women from Ohio. Dude, I dig book clubs. This is the thing. The world needs more book clubs. I'm trying to get more involved with the Life's Library book club that John Green is running online. I subscribed to it quite a while ago, and they do a new book about every 6 weeks, and I just have not prioritized the time to read them, which sounds terrible, but I think that's just kind of how it was going to be the lead up to Dave's deployment. I have a bit more time now, so looking forward to kind of getting more into that. No, don't club people with books. That's not correct. Quit clubbing baby seals. It's one of my favorite grammar memes ever, because I'm a nerd and I like grammar. Yeah, audiobooks are pretty amazing. Dave and I have been listening to The Wheel of Time on audiobook when we travel, because we do a fair amount of long distance driving. The closest major city to me is an hour away, but the one we tend to go to the most is 2 hours each direction. And then his family is back in the city that we met in, which is about 5 hours from here. So we don't get back there as often as we'd like to, but that's still 10 hours round trip on the road. So you can cover a lot of ground in a book when you're doing audiobooks. I think once I'm done catching up on Critical Role, I'm probably going to start listening to audiobooks while I work. I've just been listening to a lot of Critical Role while I'm working lately. So that's pretty fun for me. I enjoy it. Who's your favorite authors, guys? Or, pick a couple that you like. I'm not expecting you to leave me like your number one book, because I know I have a hard time choosing. Only the Magic Kingdom series, hey? Why only that one, Laura? I'm curious. Sorry. Let me know if I'm being too noisy. Nosy, not noisy. Of course I'm being noisy. The Gaiman. The Gaiman is pretty amazing. I enjoy him. Did you read Good Omens, Gary? Because I don't remember you being such a huge fan of Pratchett. The Shannara books. What about... Doesn't he have the one that's Wizard's First Rule, or am I thinking of a different author? Terry Goodkind. Terry Goodkind, that's who I'm thinking of for Wizard's First Rule, I'm pretty sure. I have the first book, I just haven't read it yet. And Tolkien. Oh yeah, Tolkien's classic. Forever and Ever. Forever and Ever. Okay, thank you. I remember now. Political books, hey? I don't know that I'd be super into that either. I think it would really depend. Some books are interesting for me in that, like, I can read them and go, oh, this would be interesting, world building and stuff. But because of my mental health stuff, I have to be actually pretty careful about how I dig into politics and, like, history and stuff like that, because it just can kind of weigh on me beyond the scope of what it apparently does for a normal person. So I have to be pretty careful with that. Otherwise, I'm setting myself up for a long period of total suck, which I don't like doing to myself. It is just not fun. Dave's a real history buff, and he loves politics, which I think makes sense for him as a person. but definitely not my bailiwick. You are reading, though, Patrick. You're reading, like, source books and stuff like that. You're just not necessarily reading long-format fiction. There's a difference. Source book reading is more like reading a textbook, in my opinion, because you're taking it on in an effort to try and, like, learn it well enough to use it or teach it or whatever. It's a very technical style of reading, in my opinion. I'm not necessarily great at it. I think my favorite author, well, like my classic go-to book for everything is Anne of Green Gables. That character gave me so much hope as a teenager and like as a child because I started reading it really young. It was absolutely amazing for me. Who else do I read on the regular? Kelly Armstrong. I like her. Yeah, mania is a gnarly bugger to have to deal with, that's for sure. I haven't had a manic period since we first got out here, which was 3 years ago now, and I'm grateful for it because, oh boy, I can wreck my life like that. That is a real quick slide into, oh dear God, what did I do? The Golden Compass is really good, Laura. I got through the first 2 books. I got partway through the third one and then ended up putting it down for some reason. But I was reading the third one when I was taking my undergrad, and we were taking lessons on Gnosticism at that point. And there are Gnostic angels in the third book that like blew my mind. It's like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. It made me very happy. I would like to see them do a movie series of it that is actually authentic to the books. Because it would be a really brilliant, very challenging film to make, but also if they were true to the books, it would give a lot of people a lot to think about that's not just a pat kind of Hollywood story. So, and I think we need a little bit more of that right now. Yeah, for sure. I can see Lyra being pretty stoked about that. Oh, are they? I didn't know about the TV series. That's exciting. I hope it's good. But BBC is typically pretty alright. BBC and HBO, hey? We don't have HBO, so I have been remiss on the HBO shows. Yes, that means I have not seen Game of Thrones. I don't know if that makes me a terrible fantasy book lover or not. I read the first 3 books. The first book is the first book I've ever thrown across a room. I think to this day it remains the only book I've ever thrown across a room. I found that I couldn't keep going with it though. There was just friggin' nobody to cheer for. And I need my escapist fantasy to have a little bit more optimism than that. Otherwise, it's not rejuvenating for me. Dystopias are never my deal either. I don't understand them. I love James McAvoy. He's the deal, man. Did you ever watch Newsroom? Yeah, I know it's called His Dark Materials. I'll have to look up the trailer. Thank you, though. I don't think I've seen it. I'll look that up. Do, 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 do. So many tiny trees. I feel like I have an abundance of tiny tree songs that I just sing to myself while I'm doing this. I have to say this is why like Critical Role or audiobooks is such a great thing, because I don't have to focus on the screen while I'm working. I can still watch what my hands are doing, but then still be entertained. I listen to a lot of music when I work too. I am a big music nerd. Well, maybe nerd's the wrong word. I'm definitely a fan of music. I wouldn't say that I like have expertise knowledge about it. Do do do. So I don't know if I said, but today is the 1 year anniversary of me starting to stream. So thanks for hanging out with me. Happy anniversary, friends. This is pretty cool. Marc Maron's. Oh, really? What kind of stuff does he cover in that podcast, Patrick? Podcasting is so cool. Like, what a neat format. I'm so glad that the internet exists for that kind of thing now. It's just nifty. I say that as somebody who didn't get internet in my hometown until 1996 and didn't have reliable access to it until 2002. So it's still kind of new for me. I am not a technologically literate person. Anytime you see me start up the stream, I swear the first like 20 seconds are me freaking out about whether or not it's actually running. Although this started the first time for the second week in a row, so perhaps I have, knock on wood, do I have wood anywhere? Figured out what the hell I'm actually doing. That would be good. A marathon 4 hour stream. Well, if I do, I would need to go somewhere to go to the washroom because that's gonna be a thing. But I don't mind being on for longer today. I was really seriously considering not streaming today because Saxon had me up so much last night and I woke up such a bear this morning. I was like, oh, people would understand if I'm too crabby to actually stream. But I'm really happy I decided to do it. I think I needed to hang out with friends. That is the one major downside about being out here, is that my physical people are not many in this location. So I turn to you, my online friends, for the company. I'm very grateful people make time for this. Out of his garage. How awesome is that? Obama, hey, that would be neat. That would be very neat. I will have to look that up. Thank you, Patrick. Hey man, interviewing comedians is always good. Have you seen the YouTube channel Hot Ones, where the guy interviews celebrities and feeds them increasingly hot chicken wings as he asks questions? Because apparently, like, a certain amount of heat kind of becomes like a truth serum because you're so distracted by like what's going on in your mouth, your brain gives the honest answer. It's a very interesting premise, and there are some hilarious interviews. Stephen Colbert was one of my favorites, but I love Colbert most of the time. I definitely appreciate what he does. When he's punching down, or punching up. I don't like it when he punches down. There's sometimes his humor is like, no, that was not a fair target. Leave that one alone. His Comedy Central show. Was that the one where he was pretending to be a Republican? You'll have to, like, pardon me not for not knowing. Like, I didn't watch him until I got together with Dave, so honestly, I didn't watch a lot of TV prior to getting together with Dave. Don't ever ask me for, like, movie quotes or TV references, because I probably cannot help you. I haven't seen that one a lot. Like, I see it when he reprises the character sometimes on his Late Show, and it just makes me think that I might have gotten too frustrated with the original show. But yeah, he's quite something. I enjoy him a lot. Oh man, this coffee is like the elixir of life today, you guys. Amazing. Helena, how are you? We haven't seen you in quite some time. I'm very delighted you could join us. Yeah, it definitely takes some balls to do that as a comedian. I think that's one of the things that I appreciate about him is he doesn't tend to shy away from his statements. Seth Meyers also. I really appreciate the way that Seth Meyers has been doing things. Yeah, I think that's fair, Gary. I can completely see what you mean by that. What have you been up to lately, Helena? An anniversary volume? That sounds quite exciting. Do you get a lot of satisfaction out of making sure things are perfect? Because I think that would be a part of me that would be very satisfied by that process. What kind of anniversary? Birthday gift for a prof. Okay, that makes sense. So tedious, but also rewarding, I think might be the best way to describe that then. All the hills, you guys. All the hills. Yay, coffee. Coffee, 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 coffee. I changed the way I've been eating a little bit recently and have had the pleasant side effect of, for whatever reason, suddenly being able to have heavy cream again, which I haven't been able to eat for like 15 years. And so I've been having like legit cream in my coffee the last little bit, and oh man, that's a revelation again. I am super stoked about it. It makes coffee so satisfying. It almost feels like it takes the place of a meal though, because like I'm just full by the time I'm done drinking my coffee. So then I just put off eating until lunch, which works well for me. Especially on streaming days, because then I don't have to get up quite as early, which is even better on days when Saxon does not insist on letting me sleep, because he is a goon. You guys should see him. He's just passed right out on the floor beside my desk. Total dog sprawl. Alive with the sound of music. Dancing hills with a rocking band. Well, I'm pretty sure that, geologic processes mean that there's a rocking band in there somewhere. If it's sedimentary rock, anyway. Can't you like both? Does it have to be an either or kind of proposition? I mean, I definitely love sometimes when Saxon is like a playful monster, but I also appreciate times like this when he is just content to actually chill out. That is a relief for me. Patrick, you are not wrong. At least one of us is getting to have a nap, right? Oh man. I can imagine that they sound like small elephants, Laura. Adorable small elephants. My next door neighbor has been training Saxon to put his bowling pin toy up on the flower box that divides our decks, because we're in the queues in the married quarters on base here. And so we share a back deck with the queue next to us because we're in a row house style situation. And so we had to put up a divider between the decks because otherwise Saxon would be able to get out of our yard. And so she's been teaching him to put the pin up on it so that she can reach it so she can throw it for him. He thinks this is the best thing ever because then there's one more person who's playing with him all the time. And I'm like, you do you, dog. Whatever makes you happy. I just feel bad because Stephanie's hands get full of like grass and dog slobber because that's what happens with that pin. So much grass, so much dog slobber. It is a thing. I don't mean to complain about him. I am just kind of cranky this morning, so I do realize I'm complaining a bit more than usual. Sorry, friends. Are you someone that can drink coffee at any hour of the day or night, Patrick? Because that's an army thing up here. Dave can drink like 2 or 3 pots in a day by himself. I can only really have it in the morning. You can, Laura? Oh my goodness, man. That's a skill I wish I had. Sometimes I really just want a cup of coffee after like dinner just to kind of chill and mellow, but that is a recipe for me not sleeping super well. Yeah, it's something that is a big deal up here for sure. I think that the army, especially the infantry, Dave's infantry, um, runs on coffee more than anything else. Kind of blows my mind. We had a player at our D&D table that for quite a while for the Tiamat campaign that he drank a lot of beer, so that was what people drank while he was playing because he always brought a case and they would just kill the case off in the course of the game. We had a table of 9, so it's not like anybody was getting too rambunctious. Um, but as soon as he stopped playing, it switched to coffee. And we would just make like pot after pot of coffee and people would drink it while we were playing. That is also a superpower, that's sleeping anytime, any place. For sure. That is a skill I wish I had, because that is not me. Dave can sleep anywhere. Zero problems. The first time we went camping was actually like the first time I'd ever spent the night with him. And I was like, if this doesn't work for me, like, what are you gonna do? Like, are we seriously gonna drive like 6 hours back to Regina and just cancel this trip? And he was like, no, I'll just bring my bivy bag and I will go sleep out of the tent and, on the ground in the bush if you need the tent to yourself. And I was like, are you for real? And he's like, yeah, it's comfortable. It's fine. I have no problem with this. And that was a part of how he really won my esteem because he was like totally willing to come up with a solution for this thing. And I was like, wow, dude, that's pretty fabulous. Thank you. Also, if I end up talking about Dave too much, just tell me to can it, okay, guys? I'm just missing him, so it's a thing. I do not intend to be boring, that is for sure. Do. So many tiny dots. Dots, dots, dots. Dots, 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 dots. He is pretty good, people. Helena, where are you? in your location of the world. I'll zoom in on the picture, hey? I can try. It involves lifting my canvas to my webcam, though. Give me a second here. Here's hoping it actually, like, zooms in. You're in Berlin. I'm coming to Europe in December. Maybe I can sneak by and say hi. Okay, I think this is zooming. So, kind of move it all around here. Good enough? Let me know if you need me to pick it up again. My desk is kind of an awkward layout because of having to have a stationary webcam now. It's really wild to me that you can perceive the different shades because they're all done with the same pen. It's literally a matter of line weight variation, and I'm loving it so much. I was saying earlier in the stream that I've switched over to using a brush pen. Let's see if I can show that nib. For doing my trees, and oh man, it's like my new favorite thing. Very, very stoked about it. Thank you. I'm glad that you guys like it. Definitely, I will figure out what the plan is and let you know. I'm leaving here, I think, on the 17th or 18th of December and flying to London. And then I'm staying a couple days there by myself to kind of get over my jet lag. Dave gets off work on the 21st, and then he's got to be back to Riga for January 6th. And so we're for sure planning on going to Scotland for a few days to see friends of ours. We're hopefully going to go to France for a couple of days to see another friend of mine. We're going to stop in Amsterdam for probably a couple of days to see Dexter and Brian, who are frequently on the stream with us. And so if we wander into Germany, I will definitely let you know. I know Dave was hoping to go to a few places in Germany, so if we can make that work, it would be nice to just come have a coffee and say hi. I'm really excited because we're probably just going to rent a car and do a whole bunch of driving, seeing all of the things. It'll be pretty cool because it'll be right after my birthday and I'll actually get to see him for Christmas, which is going to be lovely. He's not a big Christmas person, so I think this will actually suit him just fine because we'll be doing something, but it won't be necessarily super Christmassy stuff. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of travel, but I'm totally up for it with him. We've never gotten to do a big trip like this since we got together, and we both love to travel quite a bit, so this is going to be really great. I'm so stoked. And then we get another trip later in the year. It's probably going to be March or April. That we're for sure going to quite a bit of time in Scotland and probably more in England. But we're not completely positive on that yet. Yeah, that picture from yesterday, hey, Laura? Like, oh man. Riga just looks like such a beautiful city. I am stoked about it. We're talking about maybe flying me out at the very, very end of his tour, just to stay in Riga for a few weeks because we're allowed to do that because it's not a combat situation. So I would love to just go spend time there. It's got something like the third highest density of Art Nouveau buildings in Europe, and it's been continually inhabited for something like 800 years. So oh man, the more I research the city, the more I'm like, yes, please, I want to go here and I want to draw everything I see. It just looks so stunning. But yeah, the canals are gorgeous. He sent me a bunch of pictures of like where he's staying downtown, and the buildings are all beautiful. And I'm like, why do we live in a world with 1970s brutalism over here? Canadian buildings are just so bloody ugly in comparison. But I mean, I guess that's what you get when your country is only 150 years old. We just have not been around. We're building in a time when making things beautiful was a priority. I've heard Estonia is gorgeous. And I think like if it's the end of the tour trip, we have to stay in Latvia because he's not allowed to cross borders if he's still on duty. Like if he's on leave, that's different, and that's how we get to do the rest of our traveling. But if I'm just coming to hang out while he's still working, then we have to stay in the country. But I don't think that will be a hardship either. Saxon just got up on the couch behind me. Hi, Doodle. How you doing? Yes, I see you. But yeah, I'm super excited, you guys. I love traveling so much, and we just have not financially been in a position to do it. I haven't been able to go to Europe since 2011. And like I understand that travel is not a right, like it's definitely a privilege. It's just something that like, oh, I would spend all my time doing it if I had the time and the money. It would just make me so incredibly happy. I love meeting people. I love learning about how things get done in different areas of the world. I love like especially learning about different kinds of regional cooking and food preparation. I am a food nerd. I am completely willing to own nerd for that particular category of interest. So, I am so stoked about eating everything while I'm over there. It's going to be fabulous. Super excited. Plus, it'll just be really nice to see people. My friends Kaylin and Bianca are in Scotland because Bianca is now teaching for the University of Edinburgh. And they haven't really had any Canadian visitors since they went over, except for Bianca's parents, I think, went once. So I remember what a big deal it was when people came to visit me when I moved to the next province. So I can only imagine that it'll be also a big deal for us to come and see them across the pond. All the tiny trees. Do, do, do. Alright, where are we now? Let's peel this up. Let's have a mountain. Come on. There we go. I think let's start here. You know what though, Gary? That's totally okay. You gotta do what you gotta do wherever you are, right? There's no shame in just being like, you know what? My world needs to be small right now. I live that on the regular. Like, I could do a lot more about going into Edmonton and stuff like that than I currently do. I like my world the way that it is most of the time. I had so many offers from people that are like, oh, Dave's gonna be gone. You could come live with me for the year. And I'm like, no, I like my life. I am completely fine with just hanging out here with my dog. Like, that works for me. I mean, it's nice to have the option. I can go see my parents or come see you or come down to Calgary if I want to, but I just can't picture giving up, like, living at my house for this year. No way. Until the fall of what? Rome? I'm confused. Or are you just reworking the words to It's a Small World? Saxon is half on, half off the couch. It's very funny. Ren Fair time! I didn't know you did SCA stuff, Patrick. That's exciting. Fall of the season, hence the capital. Okay, fair. I'll give you that. Dave and I have been talking about maybe getting into Ren Fair and SCA stuff once he's back because we'll actually be in a financial position to have spending money for that kind of thing. It's something that we've both been super fascinated by for a long time. We went to a kind of Ren Fair Dungeons and Dragons thing for our anniversary this year, where it was at a medieval venue, and then they just ran D&D for the weekend. Oh man, it was so good. It was like the most wonderful combination of things we could have done. You just visit. That's alright. There are worse things to visit. Now you're completely off the couch, you silly Lumba. Hi. Yes, I know. It's been a long stream. But you're being very good. Thank you for being good. Maybe in 10 more minutes? Yeah. Maybe in 10 more minutes, okay? You just hang in there. Yeah, that's a long drive, especially if it's going to rattle your car apart into pieces. That's not something you necessarily want to have to take on. No, Doodle. 10 more minutes. Gotta wait. I know, but you gotta wait. There's a hole in the skid plate of my car. I don't know what on earth I ran into, but my car is quite low, so I haven't been driving it because I don't know if everything is still attached properly underneath. Now that it's been payday, I can take it to somebody who understands vehicles. They can let me know, because that would be super keen. Definitely not vehicle adept over here. It's not my primary skill. Might be fun to drive a Mini Cooper for a while, Gary. Who's coming back from Ontario? Oh, that's a lot. $400 for a month. Like, you're probably paying for those classes on top of that, right? Plus gas. Oof. Is it just like standard Pennsylvania roads? Or like were you doing gravel roads or because like highway maintenance is a pretty big deal here. Saskatchewan's probably the worst for it and even their roads are fairly reliable. Yeah, highway. Oh, dude, I feel for you. That sucks. Okay, well, have fun with that, Gary. It's very good of you to support your friend by lending your vehicle. Oh, dude, Patrick, that sounds terrible. Yeah, Gary, no, that makes sense to me. I was kind of surprised. I misread your original comment. I thought you said that you had already committed to it, not that your friend just wanted to. That's a pretty big ask. I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily have asked you for that, and I know Pa better than I think most of your friends. Thank you, Patrick. I'm excited about these mountains. I'm trying to like play with my ridge line a little bit more, make them a bit more natural. I think it's working. It's gonna take some bringing the heavier black line over here to make them like graft into the map, but that's okay. Like this is just the putting them in so that I know where they are kind of thing. The heavier black line can come after. Yeah, that's fair, Gary. Go Gotta make the decisions that are right for you. Hi, Nikki. How are you? Welcome to the stream. We are just hanging out. It's kind of what we do. Watch the magic happen. You are too kind, Patrick. Thank you so much. I'm working on those for a novelist's map that I'm currently drafting up, so it's been fun to do something a little bit different with my time. Hi, Saxon. Or are you going to lay down under the desk? Okay, you can do that. Hi, baby. Those are my toes. Just saying. Do you do artwork of your own, Nikki? And where are you from in the world? You're from Connecticut. Cool. Yay! Laura, Gary, and I are all up in Alberta, Canada. We're all in different cities. And Patrick, I don't know that I know where you're from. Near Pennsylvania, apparently. Did we talk about that at the beginning of the chat? I can't remember. No, I don't think we did. Delaware. Okay, there we go. The first state. Okay. I am clearly not that up on my American history. The period of American history I know the most about is actually something I was researching for the world building for my novel, and that's the New York Revolution in 1776. Because one of my main settings in my book is a city colony that is going to be ceding from its empire. So I was like, hey, history, give me some templates because I don't know how to write this very well. I did not realize that like the mint and postage figured into that as much as it did. It was very fascinating. You'll pick it up again really quick though, Nikki. Like there were years that I wasn't doing a lot of art and it just comes back the more you get into it. I hear you about the getting talked out of continuing with it though. Like this is always what I've wanted to do, but I've had a really hard road to kind of get back to a place where I was able to make it full time physically. But then also like a lot of people in real life are like, you're never gonna make a living doing this. What are you doing wasting your time? And I'm like, making people happy, including myself. The world would be a much crummier place without artists in it. So I'm in a position to do it now, which is absolutely lovely. And the more you get back to it, the better it's going to be for you. Are you part of the Fantasy Maps and World Building group on Facebook? Because that's a super great place if you want to just hang out with like-minded people who are doing this kind of thing or get advice or anything like that. You've only been doing it for a year, Patrick? You just blew my mind. Like, straight out of my head. That's amazing. I would have assumed you'd been at it for a lot longer. So, go to Facebook. Join the Fantasy Maps and Worlds group. Make sure you answer the questions. I'm an admin there, so I can definitely vouch for the group. It's pretty amazing. And then in terms of like places to start, settlement maps, I don't know. Fantasy Maps and Worlds. If you search for it on Facebook, it should come right up. Okay, settlement maps. I don't know if WASD20 does anything for that. Questing Beast might. But great channels to kind of check out as you get started on YouTube is WASD20. That's Nate. And he actually is part of the Fantasy Maps group. He does really amazing tutorials on kind of getting started with different mapping programs and kind of like how you want to deal with landscape maps. Yeah, Nate is just amazing. And then another one is Questing Beast. They do some really good stuff. Devin Rue is another like landscape cartographer who is incredible. Dyson Logos has started broadcasting on Twitch. He does primarily dungeon design, but is super famous, is working for Wizards of the Coast now, and he's worth checking out. And there's all kinds of resources in the Fantasy Maps and Worlds group. If you go in and search the hashtag reference, a whole bunch of stuff will come up that's kind of like beginner stuff or stuff that's good to know. And I think there might be a hashtag for tutorials too. I'd have to go into the group and double check that. So, yeah, Nate is just brilliant. I wish him every success. He is just a generous, generous human to be giving his time like that to the community. So, so awesome. My dog is telling me that it is after 11 and that I promised I would take him out 10 minutes ago. So I am going to sign off for today. Nikki, we typically do this every week. It's usually on a Thursday. This week it was a Friday. I don't know if there's one that works better for people. If there is, tell me, because I am very flexible in my time and I can make anything work. As long as my dog is patient with me. You guys should see his face. He's hilarious right now. But yeah, I typically stream for an hour, hour and a half, and we just hang out. If you've got a project, bring it to work on it. We just kind of chat and work and have our own little internet art jam. Otherwise, if you want to find me on Facebook, I do an announcement for every stream. The Monocled Octopus Facebook page is kind of my central. And I think I'm going to start announcing it on Instagram too, just because I don't know if that's useful for some people, but it might be. I'm terrible at self-promotion. I think that will become obvious over time. But I like hanging out with people. Okay, I can start posting it in mapping and world building for sure, Patrick. Laura, I really love that you and Justina joined me from work. I think that's pretty awesome. It makes me happy. All right, friends, let's call it for this week, and we will reconvene next week. And I'm going to take Saxon outside before he jumps up on my desk here. All right, I'm going to go. I love you much. I hope you have a great weekend, and we will do this again next week. Bye.